Іноді, коли я дивлюсь на ці міські стіни, це повертає мене на війну. Ми боролися за кожен сантиметр цієї землі, за кожен камінь у цих стінах. Ми були молоді, ми були рішучі, і ми не могли дозволити собі програти. Ми багато втратили домашніх тварин, ресурси, життя. Але врешті-решт, імперія не забрала нашу батьківщину.
The mainland was fractured, divided not by rivers or mountains, but by ideology, ambition, and fear. 4 nations stood in tense silence. There was no open war, but no peace either. Only a countdown. In the west, the coupage dug deep. Infrastructure came first. Mines, roads, and farms. Under Pixelized Chicken's co-prosperity model, players were given freedom, but little guidance. There were no burdens, but also no backbone. Without a strong government, their progress stalled. Their ideals brought peace, but not power. Western Medicae mirrored the coupage's loose governance, but not their weakness. They were smaller, but efficient, tactical. In the shadows of larger nations, they secured netherite, enhancements, and villagers, arming themselves quietly while others watched the horizon. And then, there was Avalon, a kingdom born from exile and ambition. Under Arcsign's rule, it expanded faster than any other. The people followed a monarch, not a council. Order, structure, purpose. The Avalonians clung to tradition. They remembered exile. They remembered betrayal. And they had no plans to forget it. To the rest of the mainland, Avalon wasn't just powerful, it was dangerous. Isolated, efficient, loyal, and vengeful. Many feared they were building for something more than defense. In the east, the great Imperium continued its quiet rise. City walls climbed higher. Roads stretched further. Irkatov had purged his government of disloyalty. Now, only the loyal remained, and they were ready to move. The Imperium wasn't just building an army, it was perfecting one. And Irkatov, ever calculating, was searching for the perfect place to test it. Just south of the Avalon Kingdom's capital lay an unclaimed coastline, quiet, overlooked, but vital. Its strategic position near the heart of the Southern Sea made it a potential gateway to the Outer Lands, an invaluable corridor for expansion and trade, and Avalon and the Great Imperium had their eyes on it. The Great Imperium was the first to act. Recognizing the coast's potential, Irkatov authorized an expedition to settle and fortify the land. What began as a simple scouting mission quickly became a permanent outpost, a foothold on Avalon's doorstep. But what the Imperium saw as opportunity, Avalon saw as a provocation. The coastline, while unclaimed, had long been watched by Avalonian scouts and cartographers. To Arcsign, it was not just land, it was sacred ground, part of Avalon's historic sphere of influence. Arcsign moved swiftly. He dispatched a regiment to the coast under direct orders to seize the fort by force. There was no negotiation. The Imperium expedition, unprepared for combat, was overwhelmed. The fort fell within minutes. The incident sparked immediate outrage in the east. Irkatov, informed of the attack, was furious. He issued a demand to Arcsign: return the Imperium supplies and withdraw from the Avalon coast. Arcsign's response was uncompromising. He declared that the Avalon coast was, and had always been, rightfully his. He refused to return the land, citing historical Avalonian trade routes that once operated in the region before the founding of Irkatov. On April 5, 2023, at 4:45 p.m., the Great Imperium declared war on the Avalon Kingdom. The Avalon Coast dispute had ignited what months of tension had been building toward. No more border skirmishes, no more veiled threats. The first true war of the mainland had begun. A mainland war was seen as inevitable by the nations of the mainland, but the real question was, who would it be fought between? The Great Imperium had been preparing for this moment for months. Irkatov-Arcsembourg's government knew that conflict was not a distant threat. It was a coming storm. What remained was the decision of where to strike, and who to strike first. Strategically, the answer became clear. The Avalon Kingdom, powerful, fast-growing, and politically isolated, was the perfect target. While the rest of the mainland was tangled in diplomacy, Avalon stood alone, and alone it could be broken. Avalon had long stirred unrest. Its exile-fueled monarchy, its rapid industrialization, and its refusal to engage with other powers drew suspicion and fear. To the Western Coupage, it was a rising threat. For weeks, Avalonian messengers delivered veiled threats. Arcsign still blamed the Coupage for his exile, and rumors of war circled through its halls. Many believed it was only a matter of time before Avalon struck. But when the Great Imperium declared war, not on the Coupage, but on Avalon, it came not as a shock, but as a relief. In the days prior, Irkatov and Pixelized Chicken negotiated a war pact. The Coupage had no army, no generals, and no training, but it had location. Its fortress near the Avalonian capital offered the Imperium a direct route to the front. After hours of debate, the Red-Blue Accord was signed. The Coupage would not join the war directly, but its fortresses, tunnels, and watchtowers would serve as a launch pad for Imperium forces. In return, they'd be spared Avalon's retaliation, and possibly share in the spoils. Western Medicae chose another path. Caught between three greater powers and still rebuilding from within, it opted for neutrality. Its leader made it clear, this war would not be theirs. Not yet. A 24-hour truce was agreed upon by both belligerents. A final breath before the plunge. No shots fired, no blades drawn. But in those hours, every second was weaponized. Positions were fortified, supplies consolidated, war plans written, sealed, and distributed. Every soldier knew, once the truce lifted, the world would change. The Avalon coast would be the first to burn, the first to fall. And history would remember this moment, not as the beginning of a battle, but the beginning of a war. This would be remembered as the first true war in the history of Imperiya. Smaller in scale than the great conflicts that followed, but no less significant. For it was here, on the southern cliffs of Arcsembourg, that the mainland first tasted total war. Imperiya's population was young, its nation still emerging. With limited numbers, each nation could only field a single division, one regiment, one shot at glory, or defeat. The Avalon Kingdom, under the command of Arcsign, approached war with honor and tradition. Their belief was simple: quality over quantity. Each soldier was equipped with elite-level gear, iron armor enchanted with protection, weapons polished and prepared, and enough supplies for defensive stands. Arcsign ordered his men to entrench within the city's natural defenses. The mountains around Arcsembourg made a perfect stronghold. Their philosophy was not one of aggression, but resistance. Let the invaders come. Let them die on the rocks. The Great Imperium, however, took a different approach. Quantity was their weapon. Irkagiga's army was engineered, not trained. Soldiers received only what they needed to fight: a firearm, ammo, and enough food to reach the next trench. To the Imperium, each death was not a tragedy, it was a calculation. A single soldier could fall and return minutes later. With mass waves and fast rearming, they intended to grind Avalon down, one charge at a time. To the Great Imperium, it was a test, a chance to push their military doctrine into real combat. To the Avalon Kingdom, it was a fight for independence. The battle for Arcsembourg would mark the first major clash of the Imperiya Mainland. At exactly 5 p.m. April 6, 2023, the Avalon Coast War began. Arcsign commanded from the front, leading his men along the high stone walls of Arcsembourg. Entrenched in the mountains, his forces held a commanding view over the slopes. From the southern trenches, Irkagiga ordered his first wave to charge. The Imperium army advanced en masse. No flanks, no hesitation, rushing up the mountain slope toward the capital. Avalonian defenders responded immediately. From behind the walls, volleys of fire poured down onto the charging Imperium line. The first wave broke, collapsing under withering fire. But the second wave was already coming. Imperium troops entrenched themselves, returning fire while wave after wave of reinforcements flowed in. Respawned soldiers were rearmed instantly. Rifle, ammo, food, then sent back into the grinder. Avalon held the walls, but at a cost. Their strategy, built around elite gear and limited backup, began to collapse. As casualties mounted, chests ran dry. Respawned troops found themselves scavenging for weapons. The imbalance grew with every minute. The Imperium's doctrine of attrition began to bear fruit. Avalon's strength, their high-quality loadouts, became their weakness. By the hour's end, Irkagiga saw his moment. Avalon was disorganized, scattered, and running out of time. He issued a final command: full assault. The final assault was brutal. The Imperium took heavy losses, storming the walls, but their momentum was unstoppable. In the streets of Arcsembourg, the last Avalonian squad fell back to the central square. Arcsign, with no reinforcements left, officially surrendered. The city of Arcsembourg fell. The Imperium had secured the Avalon coast. The Battle of Arcsembourg ended in blood and ash. What was meant to be a test for the Imperium became a warning to the rest of the mainland. The Avalon coast belonged to the Great Imperium. The guns had fallen silent. The Avalon coast had been taken. Arcsembourg stood smoldering but intact. The war, though brief, was over. And now, the matter of peace had to be settled. Arcsign traveled to Irkatov under a white banner. Though defeated, he still held his crown, his city, and his pride. The Avalon Kingdom had survived, but not unscarred. The Great Imperium's intentions were never annexation. Their goal had always been clear: to test their military doctrine, to evaluate the logistics of modern war, and to prove the effectiveness of mass supply tactics. Avalon, isolated and far from Irkatov, was a convenient target. The terms were direct: 3 demands and no more. 1. Hand over any remaining Avalon war material for study. 2. Pay 16 diamonds in reparations. And 3. Officially recognize the Avalon coast as Imperium territory. Arcsembourg had little choice, and yet the terms were light. No annexation of Arcsembourg, no military occupation, no long-term penalty. It was, in its own way, merciful. Resentment simmered. Avalon still viewed the coast as their rightful territory, taken, not surrendered. And while Arcsembourg had agreed to peace, the memory of defeat lingered. The Imperium no longer had an army, it had fanatics. And yet, the Avalon Coast War had done more than test weapons. It had revealed something darker. A war between mainland powers was no longer theory, it was reality, and the devastation was undeniable. Now, it's only a matter of time.
Only a matter of time until the great Imperium expands again.